There are roughly 8,500 Jews living inside Iran right now, not in history. Right now, under the Islamic Republic. Under the same government that calls Israel a cancer, that funds groups dedicated to its destruction, that has spent 40 years declaring that Zionism is the enemy of all humanity, and every single one of those 8,500 people wakes up each morning and makes a calculation. How much to say? How much to show? How much of themselves to make visible? And how much to keep buried? That calculation is not paranoia. It is survival mathematics, refined across 4 decades of living inside a country that officially tolerates you and unofficially never forgets you are there. Mossad understood this better than almost anyone. They also understood something else. Something that, by the early 2000s, had become one of the most urgent questions on the Iran desk in Tel Aviv. If Iran's Jewish communities were still alive, still meeting, still praying, still maintaining the social fabric of a minority that had somehow outlasted a revolution that should have ended them, then those communities contained something that no satellite, no intercepted signal, no defector in a safe house could provide. They contained memory, relationship, trust, the kind of human intelligence that only exists inside a living community and that disappears the moment that community is gone. The question was whether Mossad could reach it. The question was what it would cost to try. And the question was what kind of person you send into a city where the wrong answer to the wrong question on the wrong afternoon ends your life. His name, for the purposes of this account, is Daniel. He is 34 years old when this begins. That detail matters because he will not look 34 for much longer. Daniel is seated in a room in Tel Aviv that has no windows. Across the table from him is a woman who has been his instructor for 11 months. She is watching him complete a ritual, a specific liturgical sequence, the kind performed at the opening of Shabbat services, the kind that a rabbi in his 60s would execute with the particular unhurried authority of someone who has done this 10,000 times and stopped counting. She makes a note. She tells him to do it again, but this time, she says, carry it like it is the 101st thing you have done today, not the first. He does it again, she makes another note. This time, she does not ask him to repeat it. This is month 11 of 18. He has 6 months remaining before anyone will consider him ready. Daniel grew up in a secular household in central Israel. His parents came from Iran in the mid-1970s, several years before the revolution swept everything they had known into a different century. They brought their language with them. Farsi was the sound of his childhood, not the language of school or the street, but the language of the kitchen of his parents' arguments of the particular tenderness that adults reserve for the words they learned before they knew they were learning. That accent, the specific inflection of Iranian Jewish Farsi, threaded through with Hebrew cadences, carrying a rhythm that is not quite like any other form of Farsi spoken on earth, is something you cannot teach a person in a classroom. You either absorbed it in childhood, or you did not. Daniel had it. That was the first reason Mossad wanted him for this. The second reason was that he was a man who could become very still. Not frozen, still in the way that a person becomes still when they have learned to separate their internal state from their visible surface. His instructors had noticed this in the early evaluation phase. Under sustained pressure, under the kind of interrogation simulation that breaks most candidates at the 40-minute mark, Daniel became quieter, more present, as though the pressure compressed him into something denser and harder to read. That quality is not common. It cannot be manufactured. You either have it or you do not, and people who have it often do not know it themselves. The third reason was the language. The fourth was the face. Iranian features, dark eyes, the kind of face that a Jewish community in Tehran would recognize as generationally familiar. The fifth was something harder to name. A capacity for genuine attention, the ability to make a person feel inside a conversation that they are the only person in the world. This quality, in the context of pastoral work, is called a gift. In the context of human intelligence operations, it is called a weapon. He is being built into a rabbi from a small Iranian Jewish community in Frankfurt. His legend, the false biography that will have to hold under any scrutiny in any conversation at any hour, places him as a scholar-cleric working on an academic study of the Persian Jewish liturgical tradition. It is a plausible project. Real scholars have undertaken versions of it. There is a body of published literature he can reference. There is a network of legitimate academic and religious contacts through which his visit to Tehran can be traced back to credible, checkable sources. The legend is elegant. His instructors are satisfied with its architecture. But there is a specific problem with it, and his instructors know about this problem, and they have not yet told Daniel. They are watching to see if he finds it himself. He has not found it yet. He is focused on the liturgy, on the accent, on the 10,000 details of a life that is not his, on aging himself from the inside out until the man in the mirror carries the weight that the cover identity requires. He does not yet know that the community he is being sent into has been under systematic VEVAK surveillance for more than 2 years. He does not know that at least one person inside that community, someone trusted, someone established, someone with deep roots in the network he is being sent to map, has been providing regular intelligence reports to Iranian Ministry of Intelligence officers. He does not know this because his handlers have not told him, partly because full confirmation has not yet been received through other channels, and partly because there is a school of thought inside certain intelligence organizations that some information given to a field operative before insertion does more damage than good, that knowing about a specific threat can change behavior in ways that make the operative more suspicious-looking, not less. Whether that calculation was correct in this case is a question that will not have a clean answer. What is certain is that when Daniel boards his first flight, routed through a city that will not be named here, carrying a passport that identifies him as someone he is not, he believes 2 things. He believes his cover is solid. He believes the community he is entering, whatever its difficulties, is not actively working against him. He is right about one of those things. The question is, which one? Tehran in early spring smells like diesel and rosewater and something older than both of them. The streets around Yusufabad do not announce themselves. There is no sign, no marker, no visible boundary where the city becomes something different. You simply begin to notice that the faces have changed slightly, that certain doorways carry mezuzahs fixed at angles that are worn smooth with decades of hands, that a man walking ahead of you is muttering something that is not Quranic Arabic. Daniel notices all of this from the back of a taxi, and he notices it the way a scholar would notice it, not the way a man arriving to do something dangerous would notice it. He has practiced this. The quality of attention, the calibration of what to look at and for how long. The guest house is exactly as described. His room is on the 2nd floor. He sets his bag down and sits on the edge of the bed for 4 minutes before doing anything else. This is not procedure. This is the specific ritual of a man returning himself to a single, steady frequency before the work begins. His first contact is a synagogue custodian named Yosef. The meeting has been arranged through a chain of legitimate religious community organizations, each link in the chain credible, each referral traceable to real people with real institutional standing. By the time the arrangement reached Yosef, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like. A visiting European rabbi scholar coming to document something that was disappearing. Yosef is in his mid-70s. He has maintained this synagogue for 31 years. He has watched the community around it contract from something vital to something careful. He makes tea without being asked and sets it on the archive table without ceremony, the way a man does when hospitality has long since stopped being a performance. He talks for 2 hours. Daniel listens. This is not intelligence gathering yet. This is something that has to come before intelligence gathering. You cannot map a community you have not first allowed to show itself to you. And communities do not show themselves to strangers. They show themselves to people they have decided, through the accumulated evidence of small interactions, belong. Daniel is building that evidence. Every question he asks is a pastoral question. Every note he makes is a scholar's note. He is constructing, in Yosef's perception, the image of a man whose entire purpose here is to preserve something, not extract it. This distinction between preservation and extraction is one that Daniel will think about later, in a different country, in a room with better windows. At this point, he does not think about it. He is working. By the 3rd week, he has attended Shabbat services 4 times. He has been invited to 2 family dinners. He has sat with elderly men and women whose memories of Tehran's Jewish community run back to a city that no longer exists, a Tehran of kosher butchers and Jewish schools and neighborly relationships that were warm before they became managed, before they became simply quiet. He is developing a picture, not of the community as it appears on the surface, the organized, careful, publicly loyal minority that the Islamic Republic occasionally photographs for international consumption, but of the community as it actually functions. Who the real connective tissue is. Who people call when something is wrong. Who has government employment and in which ministry. Whose children have left and maintained contact and whose children have left and cut every thread. This is mapping, not geography, relationship, trust lines and fear lines and the subtle revealing patterns of who avoids whom in a room without anyone acknowledging the avoidance. He is good at this. He is, in fact, very good at this. And that is the first thing that should concern him, because being very good at something in the field creates its own momentum, and momentum has a direction, and the direction is always further in. At the end of the 4th week, something happens that Daniel reports to his handlers as routine. A woman named Miriam, late 30s, daughter of one of the elder families, educated, with the particular alertness of someone who has spent a lifetime in a community where alertness is a survival skill, asks him a specific technical question. A question about a liturgical melody, the Shirazi tradition versus the Tehrani tradition, a distinction that matters to people who grew up hearing both. He answers correctly. He answers completely. He answers 1/2 second too fast. Mariam says nothing. She nods and moves the conversation elsewhere. Daniel does not report this. He does not report it because he does not fully register it. He registered her question, his answer, her response, and classified the exchange as a test that he passed. He is not wrong that it was a test. He is wrong that passing it ended anything. His handlers make contact at the end of week 5. The channel is secure. The communication is brief. The original insertion timeline was 8 weeks. They are asking him to extend to 12. The reason given is that a name has appeared in another intelligence stream that matches a person Daniel has been developing proximity to inside the community. The match is considered significant enough to warrant additional time for confirmation. Daniel sits with this for 30 minutes before responding. He knows what extending means. Every additional week is additional exposure. Additional opportunities for the small inconsistencies that are inevitable in any long-term cover. The answer that comes slightly differently than it did 3 weeks ago. The memory that doesn't quite match an earlier version of the same memory, to accumulate into a pattern that a careful observer can read. He agrees to the extension. He has been trained to agree to extensions. What he does not say in his response, what he does not have a secure way of saying, is that he has begun to feel, in a way he cannot fully locate or name, that something in the community's response to him is slightly different than it was in the first 2 weeks. Not suspicious, not hostile, just different. A quality of attention that has shifted in a direction he cannot precisely identify. He tells himself this is operational fatigue, the natural hypervigilance that comes from sustained undercover work. He has been trained to recognize this distortion and to discount it appropriately. He discounts it, he extends. In week 7, Kamran finds him. Not the other way around, this is important. Daniel had identified Kamran in week 3, a pharmacist in his 50s, cautious in a way that was different from the community's general caution. A man who left gatherings early and went quiet in specific ways around specific topics. Daniel had been engineering proximity, creating conditions, allowing space. Kamran does not use that. Space, he closes it himself. He comes to the synagogue archive on a Thursday afternoon and sits down without being invited and looks at Daniel for a long, flat moment and says, in Farsi, "You are not writing a book." And here is where the script that Daniel has been running in his head for 7 weeks encounters something it was not written to handle. Because Kamran is not suspicious of Daniel in the way an informant or a VEVAK officer would be suspicious. He is not evaluating whether Daniel is a threat. He is evaluating whether Daniel is what Kamran has been waiting for. There is a difference, and the difference matters enormously. They talk for 4 hours. It is a conversation conducted in a kind of layered code. Everything said has a surface meaning and a real meaning, and both men understand both registers and neither one names the actual subject explicitly. By the end of it, Kamran has given Daniel 3 names. One of them, the third one, offered almost as an afterthought, matches the name from the other. Intelligence stream that Daniel's handlers asked him to stay and confirm. It is a success. By any operational measure, it is exactly what the extension was designed to produce. And Daniel reports it as a success. That night, through the secure channel, he sends the confirmation his handlers needed. The response is immediate and positive. The operation is working. What he does not report, because he does not yet fully understand what he is reporting, is the specific thing Kamran said in the final 10 minutes of their conversation. Kamran said, "I knew in the second week that you were not what you said you were. I told no one. I waited to see if you were careful enough. Second week, not seventh, second." Daniel had believed for 5 weeks that his cover was holding, that the community had accepted his identity, that the pastoral role was creating the protected space his handlers had designed it to create. It was not. It had not been, not fully, not for a single day after the second week. The operation had succeeded. The intelligence was real. The source was genuine. But the foundation it was built on, the assumption that the cover was intact, had been wrong since almost the beginning. And if Kamran had known since week 2 and had chosen to wait and watch rather than act, the question that now sits at the center of everything is the question Daniel cannot answer. Who else knew? And what precisely were they waiting for? The morning after Kamran's confession, Daniel wakes at 5 and does not move for 20 minutes. He is running the previous 5 weeks backward in his mind. Every interaction, every conversation, every moment he believed the cover was holding and adjusted his behavior accordingly. He is looking for the places where he was visible when he believed he was invisible. He is looking for what was seen and by whom and what they did with it. This is not a useful exercise. He knows it is not useful. He does it anyway because the alternative is accepting that he operated for 5 weeks inside a situation he did not understand, and that understanding is not something a person settles into easily at 5 in the morning in a guest house in Tehran. By 6, he has stopped running it backward and started running the question forward. If Kamran knew in week 2 and told no one, waited, watched, decided eventually to make contact himself, then Kamran is either the most significant asset this operation will produce, or he is the most sophisticated deception Daniel has yet encountered. A man who admits to having seen through your cover is either handing you something real or handing you something that looks real. And the difference between those two things is not always visible from the inside of the situation. Daniel makes tea. He does not report this uncertainty to his handlers. Not yet. He needs another conversation with Kamran before he knows what he is actually dealing with. That conversation happens 2 days later in the back of Kamran's pharmacy, during the hour before closing, when the street outside is quiet and the light through the frosted window turns everything the color of old paper. Daniel asks Kamran directly, who else in the community has the same suspicion? Kamran is quiet for a long time. Then he says there is a woman. He does not name her immediately. He describes her instead, educated, observant, the daughter of one of the elder families, and Daniel understands before the description is finished that he is describing Miriam. He keeps his face exactly as it is. Kamran says Miriam has not reported anything, has not spoken to anyone outside the community, has not, as far as Kamran knows, arrived at a specific conclusion. She has arrived at a feeling, and she is a woman who does not act on feelings without evidence, and so far she has not found evidence she trusts enough to act on. So far. Daniel asks Kamran how confident he is in this assessment. Kamran says, "Confident enough that I am still sitting here." This is not the same as confident. Daniel notes this. He thanks Kamran. He leaves the pharmacy and walks back toward the guest house by a longer route. And while he walks, he makes a decision that he has been trained to make through a specific channel and has instead made alone on a street in Tehran, which is not how it is supposed to work. He decides to stay. The false start happens in week 8. There is a community gathering, a modest celebration, a family milestone, the kind of event that in any other context would be entirely unremarkable. Daniel attends. He is expected to attend. Not attending would itself be a signal. Midway through the evening, a man he has not seen before enters the room. Middle 50s, dressed carefully. The way he moves through the room is different from how the other guests move, not unfamiliar with the space, but not quite belonging to it either. He greets 2 people and positions himself in a corner with a glass he does not drink from. Daniel recognizes this signature. He has been trained to recognize it. He does not look at the man directly. He recalibrates every decision he makes for the rest of the evening. Who he speaks to, for how long, about what, from which physical position in the room. He leaves at an appropriate time, neither early nor last. He returns to the guest house and reports through the secure channel that there was an unidentified observer at the gathering, and that he is requesting authorization to compress the remaining timeline. The response takes 6 hours, which is longer than usual. The response, when it comes, is, "Hold position." The man at the gathering has been identified through another channel as a low-level municipal official with no known VEVAK affiliation. Attendance at community events is consistent with his professional profile. No operational significance assessed. Daniel reads this twice. Then he puts the communication away and sits with the specific discomfort of being told that the thing his instincts flagged as significant is not significant by people who are not in the room. He holds position. 3 days later, the municipal official's face appears in a photograph that Kamran shows him. The photograph is old, 10 years at least by the quality of the print. In it, the man is standing with 2 other men outside a building that Daniel cannot immediately identify. Kamran identifies it for him. It is a Ministry of Intelligence regional office. The man's current municipal role is real. His previous professional history is also real. These 2 things are not mutually exclusive, and Daniel understands that they are not mutually exclusive. And he understands that his handler's assessment was not wrong, it was incomplete. He reports this to his handlers. The response this time is faster. It is also, for the first time in the operation, something that is not a directive. It is a question. They ask him what his read is on the ground. This is the moment that looks, from the outside, like trust being extended, an experienced handler deferring to the judgment of the operative in the field. Daniel knows it can also mean something else. It can mean that the people making decisions from a distance have reached the edge of what their distance allows them to see, and they are asking him to take on a weight that should not entirely be his. He gives them his read. He says the operation is producing. He says the timeline compression should proceed regardless. He says he has reason to believe the cover has more exposure than the original assessment indicated, and that additional time does not mean additional safety. He does not mention Kamran's second-week disclosure. He has been holding this back, not for any principled reason, because reporting it means explaining why he did not report it immediately, and that explanation does not reflect well on his judgment, and he needs his handlers to trust his judgment right now. This omission will matter. He knows it will matter. He makes it anyway. The false release comes in week 9, 4 days before his planned extraction. It comes in the form of a Shabbat service that feels, for the first time in the operation, entirely normal. Not managed normal, not the functional normalcy of a community that is performing relaxation for an observer. Actual normalcy, the specific ease that settles into a room when people have forgotten, temporarily, to be careful. An elderly man tells a long story about a journey he made as a child, before the revolution, that is funny and sad in the same breath. People laugh. Someone refills wine without being asked. The prayers at the end of the service have a particular warmth that Daniel, inside his cover, is not supposed to feel, and feels anyway. He walks back to the guest house that night with the specific sensation of a man who has, for a few hours, stopped calculating. He will later understand that this was the most dangerous moment of the entire operation. Not the gathering with the municipal official. Not Miriam's assessment. Not even Kamran's disclosure. This, the moment the calculation stopped. Because it stopped for Daniel, who was trained to notice when it stopped and restart it immediately. But it may not have stopped for everyone in that room. He is 3 days from extraction. He is carrying more genuine intelligence than the operation originally projected. The names Kamran gave him have been cross-referenced and assessed as significant. The network mapping he has produced is more complete than his handlers expected. He has one final meeting with Kamran scheduled for the following morning. A handoff, not of documents or materials, but of a verbal confirmation that a specific individual is who Mossad's other intelligence streams suggest he is, a confirmation that cannot be obtained any other way. He sleeps 4 hours. He wakes before the alarm. He goes to the meeting, and Kamran is not there. The pharmacy is open. A young assistant is behind the counter. The assistant says Kamran has a family matter this morning. He will be in by afternoon. Can he help with something? Daniel buys a bottle of antacids he does not need. He thanks the assistant. He leaves. He walks 3 blocks before he stops walking. He stands on a pavement in Tehran, 36 hours from the planned extraction window, and he does not know if Kamran's absence is a family matter or a warning, or something that has already passed the point where a warning would be relevant. He does not know who told whom, or when, or how much. He knows only that the one confirmation he still needs is now behind an absence he cannot read, and that the extraction window does not move. Daniel waits 2 hours before returning to the pharmacy. Cameron is still not there. The assistant gives the same answer with the same inflection, which means either it is true or someone rehearsed it well enough that the difference is no longer findable from the outside. Daniel returns to the guest house. He sits at the small desk and writes 3 sentences in his scholar's notebook, the surface notebook, the academic one, about a liturgical melody he discussed at last night's service. Then he opens the secure channel and reports, in the specific clipped language that the channel requires, that the final confirmation meeting has not occurred and that he is requesting guidance on whether to wait or proceed to extraction protocol. The response takes 4 hours. 4 hours is the longest gap of the entire operation. He does not spend those hours productively. He spends them doing what operatives are trained not to do, which is constructing scenarios. Each scenario branches from Cameron's absence and leads somewhere different. Some of them lead somewhere that ends the operation cleanly. Some of them lead somewhere that does not end cleanly at all. By the time the response arrives, he has built 7 versions of the next 36 hours. The response eliminates 6 of them. Proceed to extraction. Do not wait for confirmation. The existing intelligence is sufficient. He reads this twice. Then he begins to pack, not quickly, not in the way a man packs when he is afraid, but in the systematic room-clearing sequence he was trained to use. Everything that entered this room with him leaves with him. Everything that did not enter with him stays. The scholar's notebook goes into the bag. The secondary notebook, the one whose method of recording will not be described here, has already been handled. He checks out the following morning, citing a change in his onward travel plans, which is consistent with his cover's documented flexibility. The guesthouse owner accepts this without visible interest. Daniel thanks him. He takes a taxi to the airport by a route that adds 20 minutes and passes through 3 distinct neighborhoods, which is not something a visiting scholar would do, and which he does anyway because 36 hours from an unclear situation is not the time to stop being careful. He boards his first flight under the name on his passport. He connects through the 3rd country. He lands in Europe 22 hours after leaving Tehran. He has not heard from Cameron. The debrief begins the following morning. 4 days, a team of 6, a room in a building whose address has not been published. The intelligence he carries is processed systematically. The names Kamran gave him are cross-referenced against existing files. 2 of the 3 produce significant matches, confirmations of network relationships that had been theorized but not verified through human intelligence. The 3rd name produces something unexpected, a match to an individual already under a separate operation, an operation that Daniel was not read into, an operation whose existence his handlers had not disclosed to him before or during his deployment. The significance of this match is not explained to Daniel in the debrief. He is told only that it is significant. He is told this in the tone that intelligence professionals use when they are conveying importance while withholding detail, which is a tone Daniel has heard before, and which tells him, by its specific quality of restraint, that the match is more than significant. He asks a single question. He asks whether the 3rd name was the reason for the extension from 8 weeks to 12. The pause before the answer is itself an answer. The omission comes out on day 3. Not dramatically, not as a confrontation. A senior debriefer, reviewing the timeline, notes the discrepancy between when Cameron made his disclosure, week 2, and when Daniel reported it, which was never directly. Daniel explains his reasoning. He explains it clearly and without obvious defensiveness, which is the only way to explain something that does not have a fully defensible explanation. The debriefer listens, makes a note, does not comment further on that specific point, but the note exists, and in intelligence, institutions, notes of that kind do not disappear. They attach themselves to a name and travel with it through every subsequent evaluation, every future assignment consideration, every quiet conversation between senior officers who are deciding how much weight to put on a person's judgment. Daniel knows this. He knew it when he decided not to report the disclosure. He made the decision anyway because the operation needed his handlers to trust him, and the disclosure made his judgment look poor, and he chose the operation over the record. That choice is now permanently part of the record, which means he chose both and got neither cleanly. Within 14 months of Daniel's extraction, 2 members of Tehran's Jewish community are arrested. The charges are connected to contact with foreign entities. The specific evidence used is not published. The trials, such as they are not public. The outcomes are known only through the kind of indirect confirmation that reaches intelligence desks through third-party channels, a name that stops appearing in community reports, a family that begins the specific bureaucratic process of trying to locate someone who has entered the Iranian detention system. Whether these arrests are connected to Daniel's operation or to the VEVAK informant network that predated it, or to some intersection of both, is a question that has no clean answer and will not have one. What is established is the timing, and in intelligence work, timing is rarely coincidental and almost never meaningless. The community in Yusufabad does not dissolve after this. Communities that have survived as long as this one do not dissolve easily. But something changes in the texture of its interactions with the outside world. The kind of access that a visiting scholar rabbi generated. The invitations, the archive conversations, the long Shabbat dinners where elderly people told stories about a city that no longer existed, that access does not return. The community pulls inward. It had always been careful. Now it is careful in a different way, a way that is harder to distinguish from simply closed. The pastoral channel that Mossad used, the specific operational architecture built around a religious identity moving through a religious community, cannot be used again in the same configuration. Not in Iran. Not for a generation, possibly longer. The window that the operation climbed through closed when it closed, and the closing was not reversible. What Mossad gained from the operation is real. The intelligence value of those names, those network confirmations, the mapping of VEVAK's informant presence inside the community, these are not small things. They fed into subsequent operations that were conducted through different methods, from greater distances with less human exposure. But the cost of gaining them was paid by people who were not part of the operation. People who did not know the operation existed. People who had been making their survival calculation every morning for decades, and who continued making it, with less margin than before, after a visitor they had welcomed into their homes departed and did not look back. Daniel does not return to field operations. This is not a punishment. It is not presented as one. The language used is professional, careful, framed around transition to analytical capacity and leveraging accumulated operational experience in ways that are accurate and also beside the point. He is good at the analytical work. He is, in fact, better at it than most. The same capacity for stillness, for reading the texture of a situation rather than its surface, that made him effective in the field makes him valuable behind a desk. But there is a specific thing that happens to people who have lived inside a false identity for an extended period of time in a high-exposure environment. It is not trauma in the clinical sense, not always. It is something more like a calibration problem. The instrument was tuned, very precisely, to a particular frequency, and returning it to its original setting is not as simple as reversing the process that tuned it. He had spent 18 months becoming a man he was not. He had then spent 10 weeks living as that man at the level of complete immersion. Every conversation, every meal, every prayer, every moment of fear managed from inside an identity that was constructed and not his. And then he had departed and left that identity behind and been expected to return to himself. The return takes longer than anyone measures formally, and it is not total. There is a Shabbat service he sometimes attends years later. A small congregation. Nothing operationally relevant about it. He goes because something in the liturgy, the specific melody of a particular prayer, the unhurried rhythm of it, returns him, briefly, to a Thursday afternoon in an archive room in Yusufabad, and an old man making tea without ceremony, and a community that had survived everything and was still, improbably, trying. He is not the rabbi he pretended to be. He was never that man, but the man he actually is has been changed by having been that man, and the change is permanent, and there is no file that documents it, and no debrief that addressed it, and no institutional language adequate to its weight. Some operations succeed, some fail. Some do both simultaneously, in ways that only become clear years later, from a distance that was not available at the time. The ones that cost the most are rarely the ones that went wrong. They are the ones that went exactly as designed, and still left something behind that no one planned to leave. If this kind of history interests you, the operations that never made headlines, the people who carried them and were changed by the caring, this channel will keep going, one operation at a time. as close to the truth as the available record allows.